Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Market Forecast, brought to you by Options University. This is Butch Shorak, and it's Monday, December 15th, 2014. Access to this video is for educational and informational purposes only. Nothing contained in this video, website, or promotional material constitutes a promotion, recommendation, solicitation, or offer of any particular investment, security, or transaction. Options University provides educational services that are meant to teach you the risks and rewards of trading options and stocks, and we're not a service that tells you what to trade. We're not implying or guaranteeing any profit, and as always, do not trade with money you cannot afford to lose. Looking at the indexes last week, we saw the first downturn we've had in the major indexes in the last 8 weeks. Looking at the Dow, the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, the Russell 2000, we see negative, 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 negative. Changes for the week. Dow down 3.8%, NASDAQ down 2.7%, S&P 500 down 3.5%, Russell 2000 down 2.5%. Year to date, all of them still in positive numbers so far. But we see the Dow up 4.2% for the year, NASDAQ up 11.4% for the year, S&P 500 up 8.3% for the year, and finally the Russell 2000 down 1% for the year, having a very difficult time. When will the January effect begin to take effect for the Russell 2000? As we look at the coming week, there may be some hints as to what this is all about. Had quite a run up in the market, and then we see we've got some announcements coming this week. Empire State coming out on Monday at 8:30, industrial production 9:15, housing market index at 10 o'clock. And then when we come to Tuesday, we see the very big one coming for the week. FOMC meeting begins on Tuesday, December 16th. Will there be major changes coming out from the Fed, and will that affect the overall market? Time will answer that as we come into this very important week on the future of the markets. Housing starts come out at 8:30. PMI manufacturing index out at 9:45. When we look at Wednesday, we see that we've got consumer price index coming up in the morning, and let's go up and look at that. Consumer price index coming out at 8:30, and then we look down here, 2 o'clock, FOMC meeting coming out, and that announcement taking place, which certainly can move the market. Looking at Thursday, we see jobless claims at 8:30, PMI 9:45, Philly Fed at 10, leading economic indicators coming out at 10 o'clock on Thursday. And then finally, what week do we have? Quadruple witching week, as we see quite a week coming out as far as announcements, and certainly some money taken off the table last week as we saw our pullbacks. Looking at the S&P 500, wow, we had our big V, we went sideways, we got all new time highs, and in 1 week, let's take a look and see what happens in the overall market. With that, we see Monday a down day, Tuesday bit of a rebound, but still went to hit past the 30-day moving average, and then on Wednesday continued on down to the bottom of the Bollinger Band, extending that further. And then finally on Thursday, a bit of an indecision day, and Friday, all the talk about oil. Oil not holding up its part, oil not being where we want it to be. But the truth of the matter is, this is a big week in economic announcements, and we could see some major changes coming in from the Fed. That is where a lot of the pressure is coming from on this market. With that in mind, let's take a look at some of the other indexes, see if they followed in exactly the same type of movements. There's the Dow. Big movement down for the week, all 5 days, sitting flat on this 50-day moving average. Futures on Monday morning up 14 early in the morning. We'll see whether that we get a bounce off here or go sideways. All right, let's take a look at the Dow, and we see it also pulled back to the 50-day moving average. Still in positive numbers for the year, but definitely had a bit of a pullback after that sideways move out of the Dow for week after week. Looking at the NASDAQ, did not hold up as well. Did show some relative strength, though. Didn't get to the 50-day moving average, as the NASDAQ showed us a bit more strength than the other markets. Didn't seem the same amount of pullback out of the NASDAQ as we did the other indexes. Russell 2000, it was still within its Bollinger Bands, basically sitting just above the 50-day moving average, ready to move forward. Of course, the big move that we saw this week took place in the VIX, as we saw the VIX spike up 9% on Friday, as we saw this thing just keep right on climbing up. We would expect that. A lot of indecision in the market, and that causes fear. This is our fear index. We'll see how high it goes. Not anywhere near as high as it was in October. Where's it going to go this week? What's going to happen? Well, let's see what the Fed has to say on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. That'll be a big mover for the overall market this week. What did you expect? Some movement to safety? That's exactly what we got as we saw TLT, our bond market, moving up as we saw this showing us a bit of strength as there's some move to safety as the overall market pulled back. We saw movement into bonds, and that certainly is what we would expect to have happen. Next, let's take a look at the gold and a little bit of money movement into gold as we saw gold reach some higher levels. Certainly not anywhere near its previous highs, but a bit of a movement into safety in the gold market. And finally, what kind of volume did we have? Well, we had expanding volume all week as the market pulled back. We saw this pull up, so we certainly saw volume come into the market as we saw a little bit of sell-off, taking of profits before we get to the end of the year. Will we still see the January effect? Will we still see the Santa Claus rally? Well, we're in a position to have another run just before the end of the year, so we'll see whether that happens again, depending upon what we see out of the Fed. And finally, looking at the financials, a bit of a pullback, still showing relative strength. Didn't make it to that 50-day moving average. Looking at the last 5 days, we did see a pullback, but not the same amount of pullback that we could have seen. Good relative strength out of the financials. That was we saw 5 days down. Well, actually, Monday didn't look all that far down. Barely below the 30-day moving average. Is there room to the downside? Yeah, we can still bounce off that 50-day moving average. We could go sideways in our major indexes this coming week. It'll be interesting to see what happens as we move forward with the week and its announcements. There's the real issue. Taking a look at oil, what do we call that? We call that a collapse with volume. OPEC not cutting back on its supplies at all. We're not seeing any changes take place on the very bottom of the Bollinger Band. Opportunity in the energy? Well, at some point, it's certainly going to bottom out, and when it does, there will be money coming back into this sector. Remember, limited resources. What will the timing be on it? That, of course, is always the difficult part. As oil, looking at our ETF, USO, showing us some real lows. With that fact, let's next take a look at the stocks to watch. For those of you that are gold members, stick around and we'll go through our stocks to watch, see what they did relatively to the overall market during this last week. And for the rest of you, thank you for being here. This is Market Forecast brought to you by Options University. It's Monday, December 15th, 2014. I'm Butch Shorek, and I wish you a very, very happy week. A lot of action taken in the market. Trade what you see, not what you think.